Well, welcome back to Lucore Automotive. Today we're working on something a little bit different. This is Phil's Pontiac Vibe GT with a 2ZZ-GE engine in it. Pretty unique vehicle that you have hopefully seen on our 2500 road trip we went on in the fall. And it has developed a pretty significant exhaust leak. It had one originally when we worked on it, but it wasn't that bad. But after the road trip and the 2,600 miles we put on it, plus however many miles we've put on it since then, it's gotten considerably worse, and it changed its tone. So today we are actually bringing the car in the shop and we're replacing that exhaust manifold, and we're doing a little bit of custom exhaust on it to shore up any exhaust leaks and to maybe get it sounding a little bit better, because that little 2ZZ engine under the hood really sounds good when it allows it to breathe. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, stick around. We'll show you the process. Now, as I said, we are taking off the exhaust off of this guy here. As you can see in my hand here, we've already done that. So this is the original stock exhaust manifold that came on this car, and it actually is essentially like a small shorty header. However, it had some pretty serious exhaust leaks from the manifold gasket and from the donut gasket here on the end here. So this is now off the car, and we have now put our brand new tubular exhaust manifold on there, which does look very similar to this, to allow this thing to breathe. So let me get you up underneath this car and you can see exactly what we are going on here. So hopefully speaking, we don't have a whole lot of fabrication to do, but at least at this point in time, the plan is we're going to be running the factory exhaust off of the back of this flange, or trying to at least, so we don't have to fabricate something, and then bring that back here. And then there's a catalytic converter that sits here, which we are replacing with a high flow catalytic converter. And then we're running the pipe back here. Right here sits a section that's a resonator. Not entirely sure whether or not we're going to be using that one or not, if we're going to be removing the resonator to add a little bit more noise. And then it travels back across the chassis into the corner and then back across for the exhaust. Now, as you can tell, this car is not exactly stock. When Phil purchased this, however, it was a forgotten backlot vehicle sitting on a used car dealership about 20 minutes north of here. Owned by, who knows, maybe a crazy cat lady, because there's cat bumper stickers that are on it. Who knows? But its new life is considerably more interesting. As you can tell, it's sitting on wheels and tires. So it's got Avid 1 racing wheels, as well as Dunlop 225 tires on all four corners. It's also on coilovers, so it's got that smash down to the ground kind of feeling. It's a considerably different beast than when it originally left the factory. Now, the interesting thing with these Pontiac Vibes is there's a big difference between a Pontiac Vibe and a Pontiac Vibe GT. This thing is built by a Toyota, at least the engine is. It's an 8,000 RPM revving four-cylinder, very, very designed for up in the revs. So giving it some breathing and some ability to, like, you know, let that stuff in and out of the motor is a good idea. Now, we also have to temper that with the fact that Phil doesn't want this thing to be extremely loud and obnoxious when driving down the road. He's past that point in life. But it does have a cold air intake kit on it, so it can breathe better, and this hopefully will free up the exhaust a little bit, let this thing, you know, make some good noises, because it is actually a pretty capable little car. So we're going to start working on this thing and see exactly what we got going on. And we'll keep you posted as we go. All right, so as you can see, we have the new exhaust manifold / shorty header that is installed, new gasket, new spring bolt kit. That is part of where it was leaking from. It was also leaking from, okay, it was leaking from everywhere. All of the flanges and all the gaskets were basically wasted out of this thing, so we've lopped off the flange gaskets, or the flans and the gaskets set up, and we've just joined the two pipes together. Not exactly the best way to do things, but in this case, it was a let's get it running and working correctly kind of thing and get rid of the exhaust leaks, because this thing was literally leaking from everywhere, and the flanges were all destroyed. If you look at the flange heads, like, they were just not in good shape. So getting this to work maybe could have been done, but you would have been spending a bunch of time and energy, and it's just not worth it. So there you go. That's done. Bruce has got a couple more welds to finish off everything here in the back. We got to find a plug for the front because the Cat came with a O2 bung, and the pipe already had an O2 bung in it, but we needed to cut it where we needed to cut it instead of cutting it on a bend. So we're just going to plug off one of those Cats O2 sensor plugs, and yeah, rear goes there, front goes there. Life is good. Should not have modified the sound of this vehicle really at all. This is more of just a kind of basic repair. He would drive it and be able to get exhaust in the cabin, so not safe. This is basically just a maintenance kind of thing, but it still should make a pretty good noise. And yeah, just basic exhaust work, no big deal. Well, making progress. At least the exhaust is on. Now it's the time to find the holes. So first fire up to see if we got any leaks going on. We got a little bit of a leak from the front. Gonna have to figure that out. And then there's a little tiny one, little pinhole leak up on the top of this. There we go. The fun of welding and custom exhaust work is get it all done and put it all together and see what you need to redo. We opened up the on the track exhaust cutout to make it run terrible. We're ready to go back home. Yeah, much better. So we didn't really adjust the sound really out of the car at all. We just fixed the exhaust. Now, it is a little tricky doing this. Now, this is a Vibe GT. If you haven't seen this car in previous videos, I'll link to the playlist on this car. This is kind of a unique vehicle. Most of these Pontiac Vibes, the non-GT versions, come with a 2ZZ FE motor, which is kind of a much worse version of this motor. This is the same thing that you would see in like a Lotus or the Matrix XRS or the Celica GT-S. It's a 8,000 plus RPM 4-cylinder. So it comes with that kind of shorty header setup that's from the factory. It's designed to be able to breathe and really actually function really, really well in the higher RPM. So if you have a really nasty exhaust leak, it's really going to become apparent up on the higher revs. You can hear a little bit of the intake sound as it's breathing there through his cold air intake. And now this header actually is a header off for a Celica GT-S, not for a Pontiac Vibe GT. Because you can't really find headers for Pontiac Vibe GTs. But as you can see, it still seems like it's perfectly quiet. No big deal. We quieted down the back end quite a bit because it did have essentially every place you could have a leak back here, it was leaking. So I'll give you a couple of revs so you can see what this thing sounds like. 2,000 RPM rev. 4,000 RPM. 6,000 RPM. Let's hear what this thing sounds like under the engine too. Pretty cool little car, to be honest with you. Almost nobody would think about making a Pontiac Vibe GT cool, but they really can be kind of interesting. It's got full functionality of being a wagon. It's got a motor, little 4-cylinder that wants to rev to the moon. Honestly, pretty cool car. I'm really, really happy with how much this thing has progressed over the last couple of months. Pretty fun little daily driver. So it is ready for its first test drive to make sure that we don't have any kind of fumes or leaking on the inside of the cabin, because that was something that Phil had complained about before. We don't see any leaks as far as from the flanges or from the gaskets or from anything else, but we just want to make sure that our issue is resolved so we can return this back to Mr. Phil and he can enjoy it for the rest of the winter. So time to go put this thing on the road and do a little bit of a test drive. Obviously can't do a lot of test driving because it's going to be kind of crazy driving this thing in snow and ice, but you know, gotta do what you gotta do. Test drives. Sound on this car.
Yeah, it is very nice. So get another pull out of it. This little stupid thing actually kind of scoots.
It actually really moves nicely, especially for what it is.
For a 200,000 mile Toyota.
Yeah, no kidding.
212 693.
There you go. Exhaust fixing on a 2ZZ powered Pontiac Vibe GT. Pretty cool, pretty unique little cars. You definitely wouldn't think when you see these things running down the road that they're as capable as they are. Now, do not confuse a Pontiac Vibe GT with a Pontiac Vibe. Totally different things. One makes 130 horsepower and is kind of a boring vehicle. One of them makes 180 horsepower, likes to rev to 8,000 RPMs, and can be made into something considerably more fun. So, if you're into Pontiac Vibe GTs, not a bad way to go. There is definitely going to be more in store for this car. This journey is really just beginning. We'll see what Phil ends up doing with this car over the year. We were going to do some autocross racing with it this year, but apparently autocross is getting to be a little hard to come by in 2021, so we'll see how that's going to work out. But stay tuned. There will definitely be more Pontiac Vibe GT-ness going on. Anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate you watching what we do. As always, please do click on that subscribe button if you haven't already. Drop us a comment in the comment section below, and please do click on that like button. It lets YouTube know that you pay attention to what we do and that you like it. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.